Welcome to you all, second day. I'm known to crack a joke every now and then, but there are subjects who don't crack jokes, and I don't feel like joking now. We have a very serious and at the same time interesting and a sad subject. We have 3 speakers on that, and I'll give you a short bio of all of them. First of all, Paul Michel, who will open up the session. Paul is the President and General Manager of IMPCA, that's the Atlantic Methanol production company, which is located in Equatorial Guinea. He's been with Marathon Oil for over 30 years. He doesn't look that way, but he is already a little bit riper than you think. He transferred from Marathon to Marathon Ashland Petroleum, and his career has primarily been focused in petrochemicals, managing various downstream business units, including aliphatics, aromatics, olefins, cumene, sulfur, methanol, deep water terminals, and chemical distribution facilities. Now, I've known Paul for some time. I didn't realize he had such a varied career. He's a board member of the Methanol Institute, chairman of the Product Stewardship Committee, and a member of numerous industry organizations, including the National Petrochemicals and Refineries Association, North American Manufacturers Association, European Petrochemical Association, and International Methanol Producers and Consumers Association. But it is in his capacity as the chairman of the Product Stewardship Committee that he'll speak to you today. Paul is a native of Miami, Florida, and he has a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of South Florida in Tampa, and continued at Wharton, Kellogg & Rice Executive Management Program. Paul is married with 2 boys, and it says he enjoys distance running and cycling. That's not true. He's fanatic about distance running and cycling. And the second 2 speakers will be Tim and Lonnie Davis, the 2 directors of the L.I.A.M charity. Tim and Lonnie suffered a terrible loss, and they decided to try to prevent that somebody else will have a similar problem in life, or it's more than a problem, tragedy. Tim has worked for Woodside Energy Limited for the past 10 years as an offshore installation manager. He has a degree in mechanical engineering and a Master of Project Management. He works with major alcohol producers, the International Federation of Spirit Producers, and leaders in the hospitality industry to lobby government for changes in regulation for distribution of alcohol. He also supports his wife with coordination and management of the medical and community education programs run by the L.I.A.M charity. Lonnie started the L.I.A.M charity with her husband Tim after the death of their firstborn son Liam from methanol poisoning in January 2013. Prior to Liam being killed, Lonnie had spent 5 years managing all onshore and offshore affairs for an Australian property developer. Lonnie is the parent of 3 sons, the youngest of 2 now being 18 and 16. Lonnie worked in finance for Shell Oil in New Zealand prior to moving to Australia and has a diploma in accounting. Lonnie now oversees both the hospital medical training program and the community educational programs run by the charity, working in both Bali and Lombok, Indonesia. Let me first ask Paul to start his speech. Thank you.
Good morning. As Renee appropriately kicked off this morning's session, we're going to get to start today talking about the very sobering subject of methanol poisoning. While many of you enjoyed a nice evening last night in Singapore with friends and business colleagues, had a drink or 2 in a very safe place, it's daunting to imagine all the other places in the world where you could have done the same thing and unknowingly put your life at risk. And that's the heart of the topic that we're going to talk about today. My role, I'm going to introduce a little bit about how the Methanol Institute got involved in bootleg alcohol poisoning. And then I'm going to turn it over to Tim and Lonnie Davies to educate you about the work that we're doing in Indonesia. Tim and Lonnie are a wonderful mom and dad who turned their personal tragedy into a mission to prevent methanol poisoning, and the Methanol Institute is very lucky to have them as a partner. A little bit about the Methanol Institute. The Methanol Institute was established in 1989 as a nonprofit methanol trade association headquartered here in Singapore with offices in DC, Beijing, and Brussels. Primary role of the Methanol Institute is to provide market support and development, policy outreach, public policy outreach, and product stewardship. This is what you see on the slide here is an overview of many of the member companies of the Methanol Institute. And as you can see, it's very widely supported, not only by methanol producers, but also by some methanol consumers. Not loud enough? Okay. By methanol consumers and suppliers to the industry. Within the Methanol Institute is the Product Stewardship Committee. That's the committee that I work for. And the role of the Product Stewardship Committee is to provide safe handling information for methanol worldwide. We do a lot of technical bulletins, health effect type publications, and there's the website's listed up there, and there's a lot of good tools and information out there, including bootleg alcohol prevention that is on the website. And then within the Product Stewardship Committee, we formed a bootleg alcohol prevention subcommittee in 2012. And that committee was put together specifically to develop information and make an effort as the Methanol Institute into preventing illegal methanol blending into beverages and poor fermentation that was causing fatalities around the world. We started off in 2012 by developing some fact sheets. We worked with the World Health Organization, WHO, to develop some fact sheets that they use today. And we piloted a boots-on-the-ground campaign in Indonesia with an outfit, an NGO called Project Hope. That was how we got started, and then later changed over to working very closely with L.I.A.M, who we're partnered with today. This map gives you a little bit of an idea of how widespread methanol poisoning is. And the dots are all the places where people have died from drinking tainted beverages, and the size of the dot is the magnitude of fatalities. To bring this a little bit closer to numbers, in India, at least 600 people have died since 2001. In Kenya, 650. And these are just the reported fatalities. The numbers are much, much larger than this. And it's really sad how much this goes on and how little is being done around the world about it. But we are making an effort to change that. So just briefly, let's talk a little bit about how this happens. There's two ways. One is counterfeit spirits. This is the intentional blending by bad guys, right, that are putting methanol into beverage bottles, and they're very good at it. They have labels and seals and bottles, and they'll take a bottle of vodka and refill it with a blend of vodka and methanol, label it, seal it, put it in there. It's very, very hard to detect. Very, very sophisticated, very illegal, and very, very unethical. The other way that this happens is through poor fermentation. And in Indonesia, the example, it's different things around the world, but in Indonesia, it's Iraq. And you're going to hear more about Iraq. But it's the recognition that when you're fermenting Iraq, if you're not controlling the temperature, it's very easy to take the methanol portion that distills off and leave it in the Iraq, and it becomes part of the concoction. And this is just a little bit of a graph to show how that happens. The important numbers here are methanol boils at roughly 65 degrees centigrade, ethanol 78, and in between there is a gap of, I don't know, 13 degrees or so. And if you don't remove that first distilled liquid off and toss it out, and you leave in the gap before the ethanol starts to come across, then you leave it in there and it causes the poisoning. So let's bring this back to Indonesia for a second, and this is the work that we're doing with L.I.A.M. The partnership between L.I.A.M. and the Methanol Institute started about a year ago, November, and we're working together on this public health problem. They started this process much earlier and have done an incredible job. You're going to see that for yourself. And the Methanol Institute, because we shared a common goal of preventing alcohol poisoning, we not only shared those common interests, but we became partners, and we are working together today. And you know, in Indonesia, a lot of foreign tourists die or go blind or have brain damage in places like Bali and Lombok. There's very little understanding of how all this works, and there's the medical first responders are poorly trained, and they're going to really talk about the great work that they're doing to change that. So without dragging this out any longer, I'd like to introduce Tim and Lonnie and let them talk about the great work in Indonesia. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Paul, for the intro. And we'd like to thank the Methanol Institute and IMPCA for the opportunity for my wife and I to come here and talk about our journey, our story, and share with you the efforts that we've got in place to try and prevent further methanol poisonings. So, let me introduce my family. So I'm the handsome devil at the far end there. It's my beautiful wife next to me. In the middle is our middle son, Connor. This photo was taken in 2012 when Connor received his Australian blazer when he represented Australia in the World Series for lacrosse for under-19s. Next to Connor is L.I.A.M, and then finally on the end is our youngest son, Keegan, who in this photo was 16. We really like this photo because we think it captures the true essence of who L.I.A.M was. And actually Connor had just given L.I.A.M a bit of cheek about how L.I.A.M was now shorter than Connor, as brothers tend to do. L.I.A.M valued the core virtues in life. He was extremely hardworking. He just completed his apprenticeship before he died. Very respectful, honest, and extremely loyal to his family and friends. He was an adventurer and was always up for a new challenge and lived life to the fullest. And this is our family today. So in 2013, L.I.A.M died as a result of methanol poisoning after drinking at Rudy's Bar, which is a bar on Gili Trawangan, an island off the coast of Lombok. L.I.A.M and his friends, of which two other were poisoned that night, purchased what they were told was genuine imported spirits, and it was coming from a Smirnoff bottle. So they'd decided the bottle at a licensed bar, and all of them were hospitalised, but L.I.A.M died, and our lives will never be the same. So, is that real alcohol? L.I.A.M was well travelled. Indonesia is very close to Australia, and we've been travelling there since the early 90s. Went there for our honeymoon, was the first time we went there. But L.I.A.M, he was well travelled. He'd been to Lombok many times. He knew all about Iraq, tuac, illegal alcohols, and he knew about the problem with counterfeit liquor. But at this particular bar, they traversed the island when they first got there, and they selected this bar because it had genuine imported spirits racked up on a shelf, all the regular brand names that they would be used to, Smirnoff, Johnny Walker whiskey, that sort of thing. They also selected this bar because the bar staff assured them that it was genuine imported spirits, and him and his friends actually challenged the bar staff, is that real? And they said, yeah, no, that's genuine imported spirits. So they drank vodka at this particular bar, but everywhere else they went, they just drank beer. Through working with the International Federation of Spirit Producers, we now understand that over 50%, greater than 50% of the spirit alcohol in Indonesia is counterfeit, with the majority of that making its way back into genuine imported spirit bottles that are recycled, recapped, resealed with counterfeit tax excise stickers, repackaged and sold to bars who are prepared to take something that's cheaper, hoping that it's the real thing. But for L.I.A.M, the following day after, this was New Year's Eve when they went out, so the following day L.I.A.M was found shaking violently and asking for help. He was able to walk to the car, but by the time they arrived at the International Hospital in Lombok, 20 minutes later, he was having a seizure and soon afterwards fell into a coma. We arranged for a medevac from Australia to fly to Lombok and collect L.I.A.M and bring him back to Perth in West Australia on life support, where he was quickly diagnosed with methanol poisoning. He was treated for 3 days with ethanol to stop the metabolising of methanol, and dialysis to remove the methanol from his system. But for L.I.A.M it was too late, and on the 5th of January he was declared brain dead. And we turned off his life support and watched his body die. Sitting at home trying to understand what had happened to our son and our family, one thing became clear to us, and that was that we had to tell people. We had to do something to prevent this from happening to someone else. Someone else's son, daughter, mother, father, brother or sister. And that is why we started the L.I.A.M charity. Okay, so the L.I.A.M charity, what's our mission? Our mission is pretty simple. In essence, it's prevent people from being poisoned, and if people are poisoned, ensure that they can get effective treatment such that they survive. Our strategic objectives have been developed with this mission sort of in mind, focusing on proactive prevention and effective treatment. So in the charity we have 4 high-level strategic objectives. The first one is improving regulation of alcohol distribution to prevent illicit, poor-quality alcohol reaching the consumer. Secondly, improve knowledge and skills of primary health services, such that methanol poisoning is acknowledged and understood, victims are accurately diagnosed, and treatment is provided efficiently and effectively. Thirdly, we want to raise general awareness across communities, tourism, hospitality industry, manufacturers, supply and distribution, including bootleg alcohol manufacture, such that people are informed, aware, and able to make sound, considered decisions that are going to prevent others or themselves from being poisoned. And I guess that's one of the big things we've seen in Indonesia is just a complete lack of understanding and awareness around alcohol and how that works that contributes to that. And fourthly, life-saving development initiatives which are aimed at providing the appropriate equipment into hospitals, medical clinics, so that people can be accurately diagnosed and get the right treatment. One of the key aspects to remember is that, generally speaking, the concentrations of methanol poisoning around the world are associated with poorer economic countries. So where you have second, third world countries, you have second, third world services. And so Bali, especially for most Australians, It's very easy to get there. You can travel there. You can live like kings because of the exchange rate. And the facade, what you see in the shops is like you would see around the world, Gucci shops, all the sort of very contemporary styling. But behind the scenes, it's still a country struggling to deal with providing adequate healthcare, adequate services. And so when you need those services, they may or may not be there, and they may or may not be able to provide the sort of service that you need. The one key underlying principle that we've applied in developing our strategic objectives has been around sustainability. So our time as Liam's parents and as mothers and fathers of Liam's brothers is limited. This is not something we're going to do for the rest of our lives, but we have a window of opportunity and we have a window of motivation for us to do something. We want to achieve some real systemic change. So we've been very selective and targeted at how we've developed our strategies and then who we've worked with, such that they are embedded, systemic, and providing lasting change, so that after our time, those changes will go on to continue to improve the situation and prevent further poisonings. Okay. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Lani. She'll take you through the activities we're doing on the ground, the programs that we're running, how they've been received, the outcomes we've achieved, and some of the lessons we've learnt along the way.
Good morning, everybody. I'll take you through the journey of more the frontline treatment that we are currently working with, and trying to wheedle our way into. The industry lobbying of regulatory bodies has been an interesting target. When we first went up to Indonesia to start the investigation into Liam's death, the head of the police stood up in Jakarta in front of international television and said, "There are no cases of methanol poisoning in Indonesia." At that point, we knew it was going to be an interesting ride. So, in terms of driving improvements in the regulations of alcohol distribution and supply, we've been working in collaboration with the International Federation of Spirit Producers to lobby Indonesian authorities for reform of the distillation distribution frameworks. This has been a slow and at times frustrating process. However, we are continuing to look for opportunities that arise and look at how we can grab those and make change. The primary health service training was one of the first trainings that we started last year. Daily phone calls to the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Australia, pestering, becoming the squeaky wheel to find out what medical services they had on the ground in Bali and Lombok, and what we could do to try and push education around methanol poisoning. So we started with some toxicology workshops, being mindful of the methanol issue being not openly spoken about, and covering toxicology in general poisonings. Very quickly became apparent that the medical staff were asking about the L.I.A.M syndrome. Talk to us about the Liam boy, what happened to him. There was a lot of publicity in Australia and Indonesia at that time, and we grabbed that opportunity and ran with it. So we started off running toxicology workshops in the Sangla Hospital through DFAT, and we initially had 100 people, spots for 100 people, hoping we could fill those. After the first one, we then had to turn people away to the second one, so we knew that it was a hot topic and we had to strike. Through the partnership with the Sangla Hospital and funding from New Zealand Aid, we managed to establish a team of doctors and nurses, ranging from nurses, head of nursing, and the head of the dialysis department. And they coordinate and manage the following programs. So we do medical training workshops in Bali and Lombok for both the private and public hospitals, ambulance staff, Department of Health and the police. And that's based around general information on methanol poisoning, symptoms, how it's within their society. We do a doctor and nurse exchange program where staff from the Lombok hospitals are brought over and they stay in Bali for 3 weeks, and they receive intensive training on effective diagnosis methods for methanol poisoning and recognising the symptoms, which is very, very important for people to be able to differentiate between someone who's had excess alcohol or somebody who is suffering from methanol poisoning. So the symptoms are normally excessive vomiting and intensive head pain, confusion, agitation and rapid breathing, blurred, impaired vision, and it's people who have suffered from methanol poisoning say it's like it's snowing within their own vision, low blood pressure or acidosis. They also learn about the use of ethanol as a metabolic blocker, which stops and limits the body from processing the methanol within their system. This is a frontline treatment that saves lives and provides time for victims to receive dialysis, which is required. It's the second step to remove the methanol from the body. The ethanol will stop your body from processing the methanol into formaldehyde, but it will not remove it. You need the dialysis to remove the methanol. Under this initiative, we've also been pestering the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade again, seeing that there is a huge void in awareness in Lombok. So they have agreed to fund and provide a accident emergency specialist doctor and nurse, and they will be based in Lombok for 2 months, mid-January to mid-March, to give intensive training there to bring them up to speed with what is required. Okay, so now this is the community education program that is funded by the Methanol Institute, and we started this year in July. The part of our getting funding from the New Zealand aid is that we did a needs analysis. The University of Udayana, which is based in Denpasar, did a needs analysis on our behalf to see where the target areas of methanol poisoning was and where the Iraq was being produced, how it was getting into the tourist zones through the traders. Through this, we really opened up a can of worms and found out that it was worse than what we had originally thought. Also, the Public Health Department of the Udayana University approached us to see if they could also become part of the program because they were horrified by the depth of methanol poisonings that were going on in some of these areas. So what we've done is we've set up a 3-pronged approach. We do the Puskesmas, which is the community health centres. So our medical team go in there. We have on average, we try and keep it smaller, we have on average about 50 medical community workers come to these. We focus on anything from basic to mid-level medical training, which is dependent on their medical training skills. We teach frontline assessment and treatment. The village training, talks are given discussing the risks of drinking poor quality Iraq, as well as the practice, which is becoming greater, of mixing Iraq with chemicals such as mosquito repellent and methanol. The bondres, which is the traditional dances, are brought in and used to tell the story of a husband who dies and the effect on his remaining family. This is a great way for young kids through to the elders to be engaged. It's done on a very colourful, loud, theatrical manner, which really grabs their attention and means that we can get this story across. Large banners are left in the villages, flyers are handed out, and we go to great lengths to engage the village elders on the topic. Producer training. Now this is a little bit tricky because most of the producers are doing so illegally. Some producers have traditional Iraq producing licences where they can produce Iraq for their villages, but not for trading supply. So Iraq is a wood-based traditional alcohol used for Hindu ceremonies and offerings. We are not there to say you cannot produce Iraq. This is part of their tradition. This is about us helping them to keep their own people safe as well as ours. We teach temperature control, as you saw earlier on the slide, and we also teach a system called cutting the head and tail off the snake. So throwing away that methanol that condenses off first, rather than adding it back to boost the concentration of the Iraq. The trading system works, that the traders go to the villages, a cap full of their Iraq is thrown on a piece of wood and they light it. The longer it burns, the better the quality is considered, the more money you will get. So if they put the methanol back in, it's going to burn longer, so that's where we're having trouble getting them to get it out. We have been taking samples of their Iraq where we can, and we're in the process of getting these tested to see what levels of alcohol and methanol they're actually having in their Iraq. So, the staff at both the Sangla Hospital and the university have embraced the ability to educate and warn against methanol poisoning as they have watched the cases and their own people go unrecognised for a long time. L.I.A.M was always about all the people. You would go to a country. We toured Europe just after the photo was taken of our family, and we were in Paris. I wanted the boys to go up to the Eiffel Tower. You know, this is a worldwide recognised piece of art. And L.I.A.M said to me, "You're not going to get to know the people by going up a metal tower." He said, "If you want to get to know the people, Mum, let's sit in this coffee bar and talk to the waiter." So that was L.I.A.M's approach. We would go to Indonesia, we would go to a restaurant for dinner, he would go to the local warong and sit down and get to know the people and know what they did. And so that's why we are about not just tourists, and we're about the local people as well. It's about everybody. We are received into the producing villages with differing levels of caution. This is their means of income. Karagasam is up in the hills, under the mountains, where there is very little other way of earning money. Huge amounts of time and effort is put into communicating our aims. Across Indonesia, methanol poisoning kills on average 10 people a day. Most go unrecorded as they don't have the means to get to hospital, pay police to investigate, or don't report due to religious constraints. To overcome these hurdles, we need to work in harmony with all religious groups to get treatment to all. Through this, we have had to, personally myself as well, learn a lot about the Hindu religion, the Muslim religion, and be respectful to these beliefs and find ways where we can treat everybody regardless of their religion. The biggest thing, I think, how we've managed to push forward so quickly is maintaining our ability to make decisions quickly as different ideals and unknown challenges arise. Sometimes I do feel that we are in there trying to make a difference on a base of quicksand and ever-changing doors. The key messages and outcomes. Methanol poisoning is a poisoning issue. This is not an excess alcohol issue, this is a poisoning issue. Knowledge and awareness are the key. Empowering medical staff with knowledge and effective levels of equipment will enable effective levels of treatment. Methanol poisoning is now on the floor in Indonesia. It is now open for discussion where it has not been before. It is now acknowledged in Indonesia as a killer. Deaths are sometimes now being reported in the media, which is a huge win. The use of ethanol as a metabolic blocker is being discussed. I have meetings on Monday with the health department to really sell the reasons why ethanol is a medically proven first stage treatment. The Sangla Hospital staff are now fully supportive of the L.I.A.M programs, taking very proactive roles in engagement of other hospitals and health departments. This has become their issue, and that was one of our aims. Increasing support from local Indonesian communities for community education programs. Strong endorsement from village elders as methanol poisoning is seen as a silent killer, with local authorities not interested in tackling the issue. Lessons learnt. There's been a few. We've skinned our knees a few times along the way. Religious and cultural barriers have seen some doctors refusing to treat victims because of association with alcohol. Fear of retribution for expats and locals alike if they speak out about this topic. We have had a couple of expats who have had complaints placed against their kitoses because of them standing up against the methanol issue. It was lodged as being unsocial behaviour. Doctors and nurses are not trained in the universities in regard to methanol poisoning. When they doctors and nurses study for their degrees, they receive a single lecture on alcohol and intoxication. Our aim is to lobby and see alcohol and methanol being a huge, a good part of their training, as it should be, as more Europeans and Westerners go into the Indonesian area, and the cultures mix and they blend. True sustainability comes from within. We have only achieved real progress once we engage the right organisations at the right level. We must remain strategic and targeted. More effort is required in prevention, community education, better regulations of alcohol distribution, ownership through the airlines, the tourism boards, and the hospitality industries. There is a serious lack of basic, vital equipment that inhibits the treatment of patients within the Sangla Hospital and other hospitals there. Processing and survival of patients is hinged on the basic equipment that they just do not have the funds to purchase. Okay, so our future programs, where are our aims, what are our goals? Ahead of us, we have a 3-year plan, and then it's the unknown of how the 3-year plan goes as to where we go from there. The medical program that is currently funded by New Zealand Aid expires in December. They have a one-time project funding policy, but we will apply again. You never know. They can only say no. The continuation and expansion of community education programs. The Gili Islands it's unpoliced, it's unruly, and the medical treatment provided on the island is not much more than what a first aider could provide. Most of you would probably have more knowledge. We're wanting to expand our community education program and maintain our hospital education program in Lombok and Bali and expand into the Gili Islands. That's our plan for the next 12 months. The initial development and negotiations underway with the ISP IFSP and Diageo for education and training of bar staff and managers through the hospitality industry networks and associations. We're hoping that we have come up with a template really that they can plug and play onto their bar training that they already provide for the bars around Indonesia, where they're learning about alcohol serving, but also learn about the risks of the counterfeit alcohol that they are knowingly serving and the methanol content within it. Frontline first aid, what they can do, you know, how they can get them treatment. Once again, the medical equipment, you know, pending funding and sponsorship, the supply of essential medical equipment to enable accurate and efficient and effective diagnosis and treatment. On one of the occasions where I was at the Sangla Hospital, I travel there once a month to oversee the training. There was a very elderly gentleman who had come off a motorbike and his leg was in a brace, he was bleeding, he was physically shaking from the pain. The question was asked, how long before he goes into surgery to get his injuries attended to? And the nurse said, 3, possibly 5. And the person who asked the question said, is that hours? That's a long wait. And she said, no, that's days, because we don't have enough surgical trays. So the theatre is used in the morning and that tray goes off to be sterilised. The next tray is used and that is it. It takes 4 to 6 hours to sterilise a tray. They cannot use that operating theatre again. So when I say basic items, some of them are very basic, which is saddening. The L.I.A.M charity would really like to thank the Methanol Institute for their support. We have grown wings and flown this year, which is exciting. It's exciting for Liam's 2 brothers to see, hopefully Liam's death in vain.
Okay, so just to finish off, L.I.A.M charity really relies on grants and fundraising, financial support from industry leaders to help expand the program across Indonesia. I know MI are really keen to look at taking this program outside of Indonesia to other countries like India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, where this is occurring. So part of our program development has been around establishing pilot models that can become a plug and play kind of concept. We're looking to further our relationship with the International Federation of Spirit Producers, but again we need to do more if we're going to take this initiative globally. The sort of language and the message that we get from Paul and Dom and others in Methanol Institute is around the industry seeing this as part of responsible care, while most of the methanol poisonings are related to bootleg alcohol, so not directly the product that was manufactured. It's in the methanol industry has the opportunity to do something to make a difference, and so they see that as a real key component of product stewardship. So certainly they're promoting other people in the industry to join the Methanol Institute and get on board.
Thank you very much, Tim, Lana, Paul. Maybe it's an idea for some of you who sent me a Christmas card telling me there's no present this year because we are contributing it to somebody else or whatever. Make a contribution here. It fits the industry to do it.